we really don't care what your political ideology is. We just want to keep people informed, and we feel that if people are properly educated and informed, they'll make the right decisions. And one advantage we have here at NORC is a lot of elected officials come by and get involved. And it's a good casual place to get to meet and rub elbows with some of our governmental officials. So, and I'd like to introduce, we have Eileen Kowal here. Where are you, Eileen? Very good. And Mike Kowal, former Senate Majority Floor Leader.
And I'm a county commissioner.
Oh, that's right. County, yep.
Former state rep.
Former state, we can go through a long, Fran Amos is here, very good in the back. I'm Matt Marco. I'm have the distinct privilege of presiding over NORC at this time.
Yay! Yay!
And being that we're also all patriots, we always start our meeting with Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please rise. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll observe we always observe a moment of silence. I think for the terrorist attack in Sri Lanka is something to think about in our moment of silence today. So. All right, thank you. And can I have all the board members of NORC please rise? We got Julie in the back, and these are the guys that are helping put on these programs. Thank you guys for all. These are the people standing, are the board and officers of NORC. Thank you. So today's program is very interesting to us because we all consider the Republican Party to be the pro-business party. And we are in a very historical moment here in Michigan, is that we have a new industry rising up around us. And it's very rare when you get a new industry that comes up and it's forming. And and also, I consider the Republican Party to be the party of less government interference in our lives and one of personal liberty. And so we're pleased with the result of the last Proposal 1, that it is less government interference and gives people more freedom to buy and do what they want to do. So these are Republican principles we're happy about, and it's our delight to present today a business symposium on what is happening now, which is after Proposal 1, the whole recreational marijuana industry is now gelling, and as I understand it, they have until December of this year to get everything ready for retailing. So who we have today, we've got two experts. We've got an industry lobbyist and then the head of the brand new Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Justin Danaskas, who is a partner and chief officer at Danaskas Consulting Development, a full-service client firm, government affairs, lobbying, and he's a graduate of Michigan State University, and he's got degrees in business management, political science, and he was in commercial real estate. And since the last legislative session, Justin and his firm have been on the forefront of the medical cannabis policy in the state of Michigan, and now they're getting involved in the recreational side. So please welcome Justin Danaskas. Where are you, Justin? Oh, there you are. Thank you. Let me see if I can get your PowerPoint going.
Excellent.
Hold on.
I always pull up the PowerPoint as you kind of give a little bit of my background. So we're a multi-client government affairs lobbying consulting organization. And worked heavily in the medical policy development, then there in the implementation of it back in the 13, 14, perfect, yeah, into the, all the way through now. And so today, though, I'm going to focus really fast forward into the adult use side of things, is that's where we're at, is getting prepared for the launch of the licensing application process and then the rollout of the actual retail stores that you'll see and so forth into the first quarter of next year. So there's obviously a lot of similarities and policy things that pull from the medical side. And really what I'm focused on is the business symposium is within these new laws, what are the different business opportunities? Really, what are these different license types that are provided within the acts? Where you may fit in, kind of an idea of what these places look like, cost, and so forth. So we'll go over just briefly again, kind of walking through the business opportunities that this new industry is creating. And then you also get a little education, of course, too, as we go through as to, you know, the inner workings, a little bit of the policy. And then it's also great that we're joined by Josh, and he can give a wonderful, you know, perspective from their new industry association, some of the things they're working on. So, a little split screen there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a bigger,
Double tap.
double tap?
Double tap in the middle of that.
Wanna give it a shot? Let's see here.
It's fine like that. I just kind of reference anyways.
All right.
Just zoom into that portion. Or, you know, you're not supposed to look at the PowerPoint anyways. So I'll try to take, you know, 15, 20 minutes. Want to give Josh, you know, 15, 20 minutes, kind of give an overview. Then we'll also answer a lot of questions. So with that said, you know, there's a lot of opportunities that created out of this new act. And again, we're going to focus on the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act. So we're going to get that down the MARTA. And not to go into all the inner workings of what it provides for, because I think most people have a handle on it, but obviously enables, you know, those that are 21 and up to consume, you know, cannabis. You can grow up to 12 plants in your home. That's per adult. So you couldn't have 5 adults and grow, you know, 5 times 12 plants. It also legalizes hemp, which we'll talk about. There's a lot of different opportunities with that within this new industry and businesses. It obviously sets up all the backbones, the rules, the regulations, how you interact with the government, the local, the state, and so forth in these new industries. And then really, you know, creates these 6 different facility types, which we'll talk about. And those are the direct business opportunities, and you also see there's a lot of ancillary opportunities as well. So as we look at the actual license types of the various 6 that are set up, you know, through this new one, very similar to under the medical program, the first one kind of starts with the grower or the cultivation licenses. And there's 3 classes, similar to under the medical. Under the adult use, Class A would allow someone to grow up to 100 plants, Class B up to 500 plants, and then a Class C license up to 2,000 plants. And then also under the Class C, you can stack, as the term's been crafted, and essentially have more than one of those Class C licenses at one facility. There is a portion within the proposal one that said that it restricts that, though. You can only have up to 5 Class C grow licenses for the first number of years of the program, to try to set up a little bit more for the small business and get the opportunity for those businesses to start before the large mega farms of hundreds of thousands or maybe 1 million square feet of grow space come to the market and so forth. So we'll see some, you know, exactly how that rounds out is it hasn't been quite defined, but the intent again is to restrict that to 5 of those big 2,000 plants, either under one roof or spread across the state. And you can kind of see a little bit by those pictures there and so forth. These facilities, you know, most of the time are, you know, state-of-the-art facilities that, you know, can range multi-million dollars just for the shell and so forth. And then once you acquire the piece of real estate to build out the interior, they may spend 50 to all the way to 150 plus per square foot outfitting it with your electrical, HVAC, mechanics, and so forth. And then as you're looking at how big are these facilities? Well, just an average, because there's all sorts of growing styles, but you could put 500 plants in 10,000 square feet. You could easily do double that, or 1,500 plants even if you needed to, or had LEDs. But they'll go, you know, typical footprint, 10 to 30, 50,000 square feet, all depending on, you know, what size farm you want to have to grow the actual cannabis. And so this license allows you to grow the actual flower and then sell it directly to a processor or the end retailer. So if you're interested in the green side and growing it and so forth, the grower license, and there's another opportunity we'll talk about. The next one would be a processor license. Now this is your extractor, your manufacturer that's going to further refine the cannabis biomass down into various other products, your oils, concentrates, that will then go into a whole number of different SKUs or products, you know, tinctures, topicals, and so forth, all different sorts of products. So if you want to refine the biomass other than the flower that someone would smoke, you would need a processing license to further refine it into those products. And those labs could be very small, ranging from, you know, $50,000 in equipment for a startup, roughly, to the sky's the limit if you want to have, you know, incorporate large, you know, processing of the oils all the way to different forms, and then adding on also, if you're getting into the more product side of doing the edibles, chocolates, cartridges, and so forth. The market is more going to these newer products away from the flower products as they get more specified in the effects and different delivery methods. So you're seeing more and more products coming through these processor ones. So if you have a manufacturing technical background, that side of things, the processing license, and again, smaller footprint unless you're going to a bottling factory or something where you need a large scale for, you know, all your different products. The third license type would be the marijuana retailer, or provisioning centers, we call it on the medical side. This is your pharmacy, your endpoint of distribution to the consumers in the adult use market, 21 and up. And so, as you've seen probably in some of the stores around the state, they're small, typical retail footprints, 1,000 square feet on the very small side or a little less to, you know, 5,000 square feet plus, depending on the business model. But just like a, not as big as a CVS pharmacy if you think about that because of the different SKUs and the over-the-counters, but, you know, a couple thousand square feet. And they're really stepping up the bar as it relates to the experience in these places. You know, people spend, you know, $200 a square foot just to retrofit and build out the space for the different experience. So, you know, they're kind of like Apple stores crossed with credit unions these days. So, you know, they're getting more innovative as the industry's progressing. You're not seeing as many of the air quote dispensaries and so forth. And with these first three license types, if you want, you could vertically integrate those. So if you wanted to, you know, get multiple business lines, it allows for you to own or operate any of those three different license types. And that's critical, like in any other manufacturing and so forth. You can control your, you know, your growth, distribution, and so forth, as well as for tax benefits if you're looking to this industry. Because of Section 280 of the Federal Tax Code, having the vertically integrated process allows you a little better tax advantages and ways to offset things. Because there is still heavily federal issues, obviously, on this issue we won't get into. But with that said, a lot of folks that are in the retail side will offset with those other ones. If you're not into kind of directly involved touching the plant, well, it's all boxed up if you want to be a secure transporter, pretty much. That license is a courier license, and if you want to do that business, you can't be involved in the others. They don't want those growing it or testing it, moving it around, and so forth. Won't be the Uber of marijuana delivery. We do anticipate under adult use that marijuana retailers will be able to deliver to consumers. The rules are being developed, we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is a B2B courier that's going to move the product, bulk product, in between the different license types, as well as they can move the currency, they can move the cash as well, keep things more secure. And so, you know, they're kind of like the pharmaceutical industry, nonchalant. You're not going to see armored marijuana, weed are us moving down the street, armored van. It's light, you know, armored sprinter type vans, caged out, very secure, track the whole process, nonchalantly moving the product as much as possible between it. So if you're into logistics, courier, that side of things, that would be a secure transporter license. The fifth type would be the safety compliance center or the testing labs. That's the third party in a sense, because if you're in that space, you can't be in any of the others. That's going to test the products, the end products, as well as you can test along the manufacturing process. But they're the ones, you know, testing for mold, pesticides, heavy metals, all the different things that may be in there from the growing or refining process to make sure there's a clean product, hopefully get to the consumers. Relatively small space, you're only testing small, very small amounts of cannabis. These, facilities can be, 1,000 square feet and, take anywhere from, $100,000 worth of equipment roughly to get started to as much as you want to ramp up on that. So that's more of the lab, those involved with want to be on the testing side of things. And then the next license type is a new one crafted, which is the marijuana microbusiness. So it's kind of a newer model that was crafted. Josh can maybe get into a little bit more of the inner workings behind it. I'll share just the overview and how I see it maybe be implemented. But this license is kind of the starter license I just came up with, I'll call it. Because it allows someone to grow up to 150 plants, and you can refine it without getting a processing license. There's also retail it from that position or your place without having the retailer license. It's kind of the all-in-one, but on a microbrewery, craft brewery type scale, if you will. So with that license, you can, of those 150 plants, then sell your flour or concentrates to another retailer. It's one-stop shop, or maybe a farmer's market analogy, where you're growing it there and have a little hut up front to sell it. So different ways this could be arranged. Again, it's a good incubator business or kind of a testing room. I could see it used in co-op's not the right term, but a lease scenario where you have a 10,000 square foot space with 5 of these units and then some in the middle. So now you have a draw because you'll have a couple different options. But they can stand on their own, and cities and towns may want. We don't want these big, large facilities, but we'll allow a small kind of one-stop shop to service the customers. So be kind of interesting to see how that one plays out. There will still be the regulatory oversight for these facilities. We've been participating in various work groups, and the rules are being developed. They may not be as cumbersome but on this particular license, but they're not by any means going to get a workaround or anything like that. So everyone's going to have to go through the regulated system and work through it on any of the license types. Also, it allows for the industrial hemp industry to take place here in Michigan. And just this week or last week, they all kind of blur together. We were able to get the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development to start issuing research grants to allow the industry to actually start now with the federal oversight that is now in place through the 2008 Farm Bill. So, long story short with that, this official state program is still in the works, so this is a Band-Aid approach. But long story short, enables you to do everything you're going to under the main program, which is if you want to grow the product, if you want to refine it, and we'll talk about that just for a second, because if you're looking at industrial hemp, folks who grow it for the fiber, if you want to make material, this isn't hemp, but clothing out of it, in the various products. Hempcrete is a building material used with the husk or the biomass portion of the product. You may grow it just for the seed, either for seed stock or to make like flaxseed oil type products. Or the CBD market is where everyone focuses on, though the biomass for these other products are bigger, but the CBD is the non-psychoactive cannabinoid that's found in its cousin marijuana plant, but you grow it in the hemp, and that gets the non-psychoactive cannabinoid CBD that you could refine and use into different products, oils, tinctures, all the same things you may see in the adult use market or infused products. So that's a very large industry and growing. That was allowed for under Proposal 1 and combined with some other state acts and the Farm Act. And basically the state's going to have all the oversight. We'll answer some of that more in the Q&A, but really there's many rules, regulations, and things that the state is enacting, and will be very similar to under the medical program, which is very rigorous. And not try to scare you, but it's just a process to go through. It's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time, because they're treating it almost like the gaming industry. So if you got kind of a visual scale, these different licenses within our regulatory body, currently, and I say currently because it will get a little lighter under the adult use, we believe, the gaming license is here and a liquor license is here. We're kind of here. So it's very rigorous with regards to 3 years of bank statements, tax returns, any copies of mortgages, deeds you own. They really go, thorough background. There are some changes under the adult use, so they won't be going as stringent. But also for the first, basically 2 years of this program under the adult use, it's a prerequisite, I'll use the term, to have a medical marijuana facilities licensing act license before you get the adult use one. And I'll let Josh get some more insight into the workings behind that, but kind of crawl, walk for you, run, and the Michiganders that earned it, and folks like Jerry and others from the industry that are currently looking to get them to progress, into the adult use market if that's where they want to be. The state has basically 12 months from when this was enacted earlier this year, or I'll let Josh go over the details on that, the timelines. But basically, they're developing the permanent rules right now. They'll be very similar to the medical market. Obviously, there's some differences between the programs, but we have a good backbone to work from. The director, Andrew Risvo, of the new soon-to-be agency next month, has said he wants to have the rules out by June, and they're looking at possibly allowing for licenses to come out before the imposed deadline of December 6th through Proposal 1. And they may tier it. They may allow growers and processors, to come out first before the retailers, because right now we have a gluttony of retailers approved and no real commercially licensed facilities that are coming through to feed the market and so forth, which we may touch on later. But the good news is these processes are out there. You can get involved today under the medical program. The adult use one, you'll be able to apply, come December 6th, if not sooner. And it creates a lot of opportunities in these direct license types I mentioned, as well as you can imagine all the various other industries, right, that are part of it. Security is a huge thing for this industry. On average, or just picking a number, seeing these various plans of the security requirements of just cameras on these facilities, a 50,000 square foot facility wouldn't surprise me if it had 200 cameras required by the state. Now imagine they have a lot of rooms and so forth, but you are covering literally every inch and angle of this facility inside and out. And that's just the cameras, right? Then you got to back that up. Then you have to be in full compliance, the rules and regulations, which creates opportunities like us to help you guys through that process, be it at the state license level, to stay in compliance and so forth. Because in the future, really, compliance is going to be key. With all these rules and regulations, the newer industry being looked at kind of like gaming, there's a lot of eyes on it and so forth. So there's opportunity for those that want to learn those rules and regulations or be in the compliance side or applications and those sort of things, as well as helping those direct lobby locals to create these opportunities for these businesses. So certainly within the 6 license types, there's tons of direct opportunity as well as a lot of ancillary to, participate in this new industry, which is really, the end of prohibition, which you normally don't see too many of in a lifetime. So it's not for everyone to get involved, but even the spin-off, construction, printing, you name it, even if you don't think you're related, look, your business line can probably tap into the industry to service it and so forth. There are a lot of costs and fees, unfortunately, that kind of come along with the higher regulation. Just to give you a quick idea, under the medical, and we anticipate them to be kind of similar, it's a $6,000 application fee to the state just to apply, and that's for each application. And then you're going to pay a regulatory assessment under the medical. Right now, in this current fiscal year, most licenses are paying $66,000 in that fee. We cap the Class A grow at $10,000, some others, but local municipalities will charge normally the maximum $5,000 fee that was set in statute to help offset their costs. So there's some large fees, but there's some good money to be made, of course, to kind of back those up. So hopefully this gives you guys kind of an oversight as to, these different license types, other industry types that are coming through, demystify a little bit of these facilities. Because lastly, I'll kind of throw my planning and zoning hat on. And really these facility types, shouldn't be treated much other than the other ones. You don't have to throw out the planning and zoning, your thoughts in your head. We manufacture, weapons in this state, Pfizer's in Rochester. You go up to Midland, how many chemicals are we making there and so forth. So with right proper planning and zoning, it's really an indoor garden that has, lots of water and power in it. So these facilities are, big green neon signs everywhere. The only ones you're really going to know are the 6 license types would be the micro grower, the retailers. And there's restrictions around advertising and so forth, and the bar is being lifted from what you may have seen in the unregulated market. So with that, I'll turn it over to Josh to give some oversight.
Listen, I think before we, first of all, what we're going to do, everybody, we're going to do Q&A all together after Josh does this. But Justin, I wonder, you just came back from Lansing today, and you were at the last meeting. Can you tell us what the status is, what's going on? Are they on schedule with all the regulations? Tell us about the board. I know they've got a board of commissioners or something like the alcohol board. Can you talk to us? I think people are curious to hear about that.
Sure, yeah, and I'll tee up for Josh to talk about some other working things they're working on. But currently, because we're only under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act until December 6th or sooner, where you can start applying for adult use. When that was originally set up, we borrowed some policy from a lot of the other ones and set up a licensing board. So after you go through the Department of Licensure and Regulatory Affairs, like 200 other regulated industries, you'd go to a board for your final kind of review and approval. And we use that for all sorts of different industries, liquor. I think Barbara, I don't know much about that, but lots of those different industries. And so kind of thought it would be, these people would be rubber stamping these applications because the department, as I briefly mentioned, go through 6 to 12 months of rigorous paperwork, background investigation, criminal, financial, you name it. We got people in the game industry said that was just as tough from other states and close to Michigan. So they're going through all these people, and then at the end of it, you get a director's report that would say, basically, we recommend approval or denial. And everyone kind of assumed that, like other industries, those would just be whatever that director's report says, unless something magical or really big happened or saw, they're going to get rubber stamped. Well, come to find out, they were not getting, and rubber stamp may be the wrong term, but again, it's 12 months of process, right, looking at these things. Why do we have this another board to VCs are on top, is what it's been kind of talked in the industry. And so there was a lot of pushback from the industry saying, a third of these people aren't getting approved, they're going through this process. And so through executive order, long story short, the tempo got changed. And so at the beginning of next month, and today was the very last licensing board meeting, that process is going to change under medical and basically be internal. You're still going to go through this 6 to 12 months of background and so forth, but then basically that background or that director's report or new name at the end of the day, that's going to be your, do you get the license or not? And then you're still going to have a regulatory process, most likely then go to our administrative law judge like we do for other industries if you get the favorable or unfavorable opinion or something to get a chance. And then of course you could always go to circuit court on and so forth like you can in liquor and others. So today was the very last board meeting for the medical side, and they were meeting once a month probably to approve the licenses. So now it's most likely going to be a rolling approval, or maybe we'll have some sort of semi-public weekly meeting. We believe it's going to be a rolling internal, like you do for so many other licenses. Once you get through all that, you pass or fail, there's your answer. If you don't like it, you can take your other action. So moving forward, on the adult use side, they're required to have 4 public meetings, but it does look like they'll continue work groups, and it will be a little more open process, so folks know the process, we believe, going forward.
Very good, thank you. I'm sure there'll be more about this in the Q&A part, but thank you. What we'll do is, after Josh is done, we'll bring you up here and we can do that. I'd like to introduce Josh Hovey, who before creating, I guess you're the one that created the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. You helped. He's a modest guy, I can see that. He was the spokesman for the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, which is the group that basically got Proposal 1 passed. And I just wish they really did it just like alcohol, and just use the Alcohol Commission, but it's not that simple, is it? And he is the, Josh is the, he's with Truscott Rossman, which is one of the big PR firms in the area. And you were also the assistant to the mayor in Lansing for a while, one of the assistants in a past life. So you've got some political experience. And he's currently serves as president of the South Lansing Community Development Association and chairs the United Way's Leaders Society Steering Committee, correct? I get that right? Okay, very good. I want to get this PowerPoint going for you. But really, you're the Cannabis Industry Association. Like most of us that are in business, there's always a industry association which helps get the business. So I'm hoping you could talk about the business side of what we heard. So,
Happy to.
Awesome. See if I can get this PowerPoint for you here.
Well, thank you, Matt. Yeah, so I am Josh Hovey, Executive Vice President at Truscott Rossman. We're a PR firm with offices in Detroit, Lansing, and Grand Rapids, and just actually opened one in Washington, D.C. Yeah, my claim to fame is I helped pass Proposal 1 last year. I was the communications director and spokesperson for that campaign. Went all over the state last fall, pretty much doing meetings like these and explaining what the law would do and what it wouldn't do. And then kind of parlayed that experience with a couple of my colleagues. The campaign treasurer, Robin Schneider, is actually the CEO of the association. I'm serving as the communications director. We have a couple other staffers as well. And we recognize the big need in the state. Every industry in Michigan has its own association, its trade association, to look at professional best practices, industry networking, working closely in Lansing with the regulators and lawmakers to ensure that they understand the needs of the industry and how the decisions made at the Capitol impact the industry moving forward. And so in January this year, we filed the paperwork to create a nonprofit association. We are a member-driven organization. Actually, Jerry is on our board of directors. He's owns the very first dispensary in Oakland County over in Walled Lake, so stop by and check him out. So we're really focused on a few key things. Right now, the industry is in its infancy, and all the rules and regulations that are made in Lansing are going to impact how the industry evolves moving forward. So our focus in Lansing lately, as a newly formed organization, has been working closely with Laura to inform them on how their rules and regulations are, what the result is. Because just like the folks at the state, our association has the same goal of eliminating the black market. We want to see legal, regulated, licensed, tested products in the state. We don't want to see people selling on the street corner. We want to see working businesses that are a fabric of their community. Let me just catch up to see if I missed anything in here. Oh, the other thing the association is focused on is also delivering a group buying power for its members, just like your local chamber or small business association, things like that. So we do have an exclusive member discount for business insurance for our members. We're working on other discounted programs for our members, and then bringing them together for networking events, things like that. We just had an event a few weeks ago in Lansing. Had about 450 people attend. We had the Attorney General speak. We had Director Brisboe, who's the Director of Marijuana Regulation at Laura. We had the head of the National Cannabis Industry Association attend, and so we are your state association for this new industry. Justin already talked about the licensing levels and what the law would do. I don't think I need to go through that. One thing, I'm just gonna just go back to what I was saying earlier. So our focus at the association is really quickly working with Laura to help them speed up the licensing process. Justin mentioned that we have a lot of dispensaries licensed in the state. Technically, the term is provisioning center. Everyone refers to them as dispensaries, so I'm just going to keep on calling them that. We have a lot of dispensaries in the state that are licensed, but only a handful of growers and processors to supply them. So the state, in granting the licenses, got the supply chain backwards. It's caused a huge shortage in products, and that shortage is forcing people back into the black market, and we don't want to see that happen. So we've been working with Laura to help figure out some solutions to speed up the licensing process. We did see the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board as a major roadblock and really, frankly, an unnecessary layer of government. The staff at Laura already do a whole lot of due diligence that takes months and months. There are literally boxes of paperwork that people are required to file, and all of that due diligence was delayed by several board members who, quite frankly, were opposed to the industry that they were appointed to regulate. You had inconsistent decisions by the licensing board. They were saying that people were too old to get a license. They said that if you had a $20 deposit in your bank account from a couple of years ago that you couldn't quite explain, cash deposit, and where that cash came from, they would consider that might be shady activity in their eyes. They denied Calvin Johnson a license for a business because he had an unpaid speeding ticket in Atlanta. Those aren't reasons that people should have been denied, and so I mean we were very active in pointing out these inconsistencies and asked Laura and the governor's office and said, hey, we see this as a big problem. From our standpoint as an association, we don't want to see people get licenses who shouldn't. But when you set the bar to get a license so high, and put the regulatory hurdles so high, that doesn't encourage people to get out of the black market and into a legalized, regulated space. And so that was an issue that we really pointed out, because we want to see more people comply, more people get legal and regulated, and through all of the other checks that are going on and the inspections that are ongoing for businesses after you get licensed, if anyone's behaving badly and not filing their compliance and logging their products into the state system and tracking seed to sale, they're going to get found out pretty quickly, and that license that they just paid not just $60,000 for, but millions of dollars for because of all of the startup costs involved, they're going to be losing their license and be out of business very quickly. So we're very happy to see the state streamline its process and allow for a single agency that will be regulating both medical and adult use cannabis businesses. We think that's a smart use of taxpayer dollars to combine it all under one roof. We think that'll create some efficiencies in government and hopefully get more businesses licensed quickly. I'm just going to skip way ahead here. A few other things that we're interested in. Banking. That's been pointed out as a challenge for this industry. It's illegal federally, so therefore people are afraid that banks aren't going to take their money. There are banks in the state that do work with cannabis businesses. They're not advertising that they do, but they're willing to with enough background checks and review of your business paperwork. They will work with these businesses, but not everyone does, and it is a hurdle still. And so at the federal level, we're partnered with several different organizations, National Cannabis Industry Association, the Drug Policy Alliance, Marijuana Policy Project, several groups in DC that are actively lobbying on this effort, and our team will be in DC in a few weeks to meet with members of Congress. We've already had several conversations with our Michigan delegation and are working with them on the urgency needed for banking issues. And we're actually fortunate at this point in time, we've had more progress on cannabis reform bills federally than at any point in time in history. The Safe Banking Act actually just passed federal committee with broad bipartisan support. There's a very good chance of that passing within this session of Congress. There are several other issues. Descheduling it from a Schedule I substance to something lower would be huge progress, and we think there's possibility there as well. The other issue federally that we're following is interstate commerce. If you deschedule it and you allow for some regulation, that's something that could come in the next several years. Probably not this session of Congress, but I could see that in the next 5 years. So that's a big issue for this industry and something that we're actively involved in from a policy standpoint. You might have read some stuff in the news the last couple of days about essentially an internal debate in the industry. I mentioned the supply chain issues. The few growers that are licensed, they'd like to see only licensed product being sold through the dispensaries. And in this interim, while there has been a supply shortage, the state had let businesses buy product from caregivers. We've been working under a caregiver system since 2008. For the interim time being, the state had allowed dispensaries to buy caregiver products and sell those with an affidavit essentially signed by the customers saying that they recognize that this is caregiver product, it's untested, and buyer beware. The folks with the grower licenses in the industry, they say, nope, there should be a hard cutoff. We need to have a date at some point where just only licensed product and tested product is sold. The dispensary side of the industry said, well, if you do that, we're all going to run out of product in a matter of weeks, and we're all going to shut our doors. So there's a debate going on in Lansing, and it probably will be partially resolved tomorrow because there's a court case in the Court of Claims right now in front of Judge Borrello. and we're anticipating his decision on that tomorrow. And then who knows after that. There's a House bill that sets a hard cutoff date for supplying, with caregivers supplying the dispensaries. That passed with pretty broad bipartisan support. We're not sure what chance that has of getting through the Senate and onto the and signed by the governor, but it's something that we're following. And as an association, we're trying not to take sides on the issue because we do understand the growers' concerns, but the fact of the matter is there is a shortage in Michigan, and if we cut off all the dispensaries from being able to sell, people are going to turn back to the black market, and we don't want to do that either. So it's a conundrum. Another issue that we're really urgent on is these gray area businesses. Proposal 1 allows people to gift marijuana to up to 2.5 ounces. And there's a lot of businesses that have popped up saying if you buy a $50 bar of chocolate, I'll give you a certain amount of marijuana. That's clearly not the intent of the law. The intent of the law was to, like if I'm brewing beer in my home, I could give Justin a case of my beer that I just brewed just because I'm a nice guy and I want him to try my beer. That's the intent of the law, not to be like creating these side businesses that, so we'd like to see that cracked down on by the state. There's also a lot of businesses that have popped up, illegal delivery businesses, things like that, that have no intention of getting a license. They are operating illegally. This is a big problem in Detroit especially. And we would like to see the state really get heavy with enforcing these businesses because your businesses that have gone through the licensing process can't compete with that. And they are just openly flaunting the violation of the law. So that's a big focus for our association, and hoping to see some action on that soon. Expungement is another issue for our association. You have a law that was passed last year that legalizes home cultivation in limited amounts and possession of marijuana. And there's people who made a youthful mistake maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago who have that mistake following them on their employment, and they're impacting their ability to get employment, to get student loans, all sorts of issues that follow with them. And it's just not fair for that to continue to haunt them when moving forward it's not going to haunt anybody else. So we would like to see an expungement bill passed at the state level that allows for nonviolent marijuana offenses to be cleared from people's record. How that exactly would work, we're open to discussion, but some ideas have been petitioning a judge for reviewing your case and then being able to grant an expungement of that record. So that's a really critical issue and just about fairness and social justice. I'm going to back up actually to something I think is important because we talked about the taxes. So adult use marijuana was passed in November last year. That didn't change any of our other medical marijuana laws. What is important to keep in mind though is when the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act was passed, that included a 4% tax on medical marijuana. When the legislature passed that law, it had the foresight saying, okay, if adult use recreational marijuana should happen in Michigan, that 4% medical marijuana tax should go away. And so you have a tax change for all these communities that opted in and allowed medical marijuana businesses in their community, expecting that 4% tax. Well, that tax is now not going to happen for them anymore because Prop 1 passed last year. So this wasn't something that Proposal 1 did and the writers of Proposal 1 did. This was something that the legislature passed, and Proposal 1 impacts that, but Proposal 1 didn't change that law. So We're trying to educate local communities that have opted in to allow medical marijuana businesses that they can't count on that 4% tax anymore. But should they opt in and allow adult use marijuana, they will get a share of the 10% excise tax. And that tax is broken down into 35% to roads, 35% to schools, and then 15% each to counties and municipalities where retail marijuana businesses are allowed. And that's a really important point. There's a lot of communities that allowed medical marijuana businesses on the processing or grower level that were collecting some of that tax. Under Prop 1, the only communities that get a share of the tax revenue are those that allow retail. So that's something that a lot of municipalities weren't thinking about when they did opt in to medical marijuana. So, and another important thing is the taxes are not shared by the proportion of business that's done in your community. It's by the number of retail establishments in your community. So, if if you're in a community that has one retail establishment that's doing $1 million of business, and your neighboring community has one business that's doing $10 million of business, it's not based on that proportion of revenue, it's based on the number of retail establishments. So you're going to share that revenue equally. And that's something that a lot of local municipalities are just learning right now about the taxes they're considering opting in. And so for your smaller community that's maybe not comfortable with a big, flashy dispensary, that's where the micro-grow licenses are kind of attractive to them, because it is a pretty indiscriminate footprint. It's 150 plants. They're growing, processing, selling on like a very craft level, and so it's an opportunity that we're hearing a lot from smaller communities that are taking a second look at this. I would also just say that we've been tracking how many communities have said that they're opting out. They're not going to allow. They're banning adult use marijuana businesses. That is their right under Proposal 1. And based on our estimate, there's about 400 or so communities in Michigan that have opted out so far. Somewhere around a third to a half have said they're opting out for now. They want to wait and see what the state rules are going to look like. I can tell you right now they're going to look very similar to the medical marijuana rules and regulations, because the law was written to closely align with the medical marijuana law. So the types of restrictions that the state puts on medical marijuana businesses aren't going to be all that different from your adult use recreational ones. But once those laws come out, I think you're going to see, or the rules come out in July or June, I think you're going to see a lot of communities take a second look and say, okay, now how do we address this? But that population, if you look at the communities that have opted out, it represents about 40–45% of the population, which kind of mirrors the statewide vote. So from our standpoint as an association, we're not overly concerned with the number of communities opting out. Your major population centers, for the most part, they looked at how their population voted, and they're following the wishes of their voters. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and I think tried to give as much of an overview without repeating anything that Matt said. I do have some other information here, and you're welcome to ask Matt for a copy of the presentation if you want it. So,
if you guys don't mind, we will put both PowerPoints up on our website. If you don't mind?
Sure.
Or we'll do that, and then also we're on Facebook Live right now. You'll be able to go back to our Facebook group page and see this whole presentation. So we're going to go to Q&A. If you both can come up here. We're going to have our Vice President Jim Tino go around with the microphone. We're going to please try to keep your questions to 30 seconds. No more than 30 seconds to ask a question. And one question I'd like to start with. Here, let me give you guys this microphone. Here. Oh, you got it. I'm still a little confused about what revenues a community gets, like Waterford, for example. If Waterford opts in, I guess it's not really all that cut and dry what kind of money they would get taxed from that 10% excise and the 6% sales tax.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's really too early to say exactly, but estimates have varied. Back during the Proposal 1 campaign, the campaign committee that I represented paid for a study that I think showed roughly $120 million a year being generated by the state. The Senate Fiscal Agency estimate was more than double that. And well, I guess time will tell. It really depends on how quickly the state can license businesses and you know, how many communities do allow those businesses to operate. But if it's anything like Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Michigan has double the population of Colorado. We are the second largest medical marijuana market in the country, next to California. We're estimated to be $1 billion cannabis industry in this state once the market is fully formed, and I think while none of the tax revenue is going to solve our budget issues at the state level, it's a lot more than the $0 we're collecting right now. So I think every little bit helps.
How do you see the recreational marijuana affecting the medical marijuana? Because when I worked with the Colorado Medical or Marijuana Enforcement Agency out there, they said, you know, when Michigan adopted their medical, they said whatever you do, do not adopt the recreational, because it throws the medical component into a tailspin.
Yeah, we the study that the campaign commissioned last year was it was conducted by a Colorado-based firm that has a lot of expertise in this, and they did estimate that the medical market will slowly diminish. The rate that it diminishes will depend on, again, how fast businesses are licensed and things like that. There are also a lot of specialty medical products that a lot of the large cannabis companies just have not a whole lot of interest in making, like your tinctures and some of your things that are very specialized for some of the patients that are most in need, who don't want to smoke or consume like different edibles or things like that. They need very specialized products. So there will continue to be a medical market, but there's not a doubt that it's going to diminish. The benefit of keeping your medical card will be that you get a 10% discount on your products. So as a patient, that's an important thing to think about.
So you get the discount for continuing to do the medical one, as well as there may be potency restrictions on the adult use versus the medical. A lot of times you'll see higher potency with less voluminous products. You won't have to eat as much to get the medical benefits you may need on that side. Through the work groups and talking with the department as well, they seem open to allowing medical product to enter the adult use market, in the sense from the seed to sale tracking to help make up the gap as we start to roll into the adult use. As Josh said, we are woefully undersupplied, but I think they're also cognizant and make sure the patients aren't thrown to the curb in this process, as Michigan has, I think, the highest per capita ratio of patient card holders, and so I think they are still being cognizant of that. So I think they're definitely being affected. I don't think they'll get thrown out with the bathwater initially and everything goes to the adult use, but it'll dwindle.
All right, I got a quick question for you. Will there be any importing or exporting marijuana into or out of Michigan?
No, not this time. With the federal designation, the Schedule 1, no interstate commerce is allowed. And even we've seen court cases and so forth, we'll have a state license operator in, say, Colorado. Then he's also state licensed on the East Coast for medical to transfer product. Big no interstate commerce this time.
No interstate commerce at all. The second question is, everything I was listening to, it seems like there's going to be 15 different people taking a piece of the pie on every sale. If you had to take $1,000, how would you divide up where that $1,000, in other words, if Mike here buys $1,000 with marijuana, I'm sorry, Mike, if I let him, how much of it goes to lobbyists, how much of it goes to growers, how much of it goes to transporters, how much of it goes, it seems like there's gonna be a million different things that are factored into the price.
I'll start, I'll give it to Josh. You're right, there is a concern within the association, our clients from, on down with more layers and more people touching. As you said, the price goes up for the patient or the end consumer, and we have to be cognizant, Josh kind of touched on the black market side. With the deliveries and the other things, we gotta walk kind of a fine line, because if all of a sudden the product within the regulated stores is 2-3 times the cost on the black market, it may even be an inferior product because of the way it has to be, so highly regulated, and or those that are producing it aren't in tune to, as Josh kind of mentioned, those specialty items or different things that the market demands. Well, we're gonna have a real issue on our hands. So it's definitely a concern. I'll let Josh, from the industry perspective, what they think and dealing with it maybe.
Yeah, actually, that was my third cost. It seems like everything that's being done to make it legal is going to, in fact, enhance the black market.
That's an absolute concern, and that's why we have seen the state indicate a willingness to reduce some of the fees that they're charging and things like that. But the more hurdles that are thrown up, the costlier the product's going to be to the consumer, no doubt. I mean, this is a highly regulated product, even more regulated than alcohol at this point, and all those costs do get passed down, and it's something that, as an industry, we're watching very closely, and we welcome regulation, but like any industry, there comes a point where enough is enough. And so I can't give you a breakdown in cost, but the market is going to be pretty wild for the next several years until it gets fully established. It's going to be hard to predict what costs are going to be.
Next question. The 10%, is that going to be applied at the retail level? Okay.
That's correct.
Any other taxing on the manufacturing and the others?
No, there's no other taxation in the rest of the supply chain. So the end user at the retail level is the only tax.
Okay. Number two, from what I hear, this is a cash business. Can I go in and pay it with my credit card or my EBT card or write a check or?
No, Jerry, you don't take cards, right?
We have an ATM.
So, yeah, and that's what you'll see in most businesses is they'll have ATMs on. There are some payment processors that are getting kind of creative where you can load up like a cash card that I've seen as a proposed. I don't think it's been widely adopted yet in Michigan, but there is a national company that I've had conversations with that is interested in Michigan that basically you load up an ATM card, and that card is accepted at the point of sale, and it's a way to diminish the cash that's exchanged, but it's not going to be fully like any other regular business until we have that Safe Banking Act passed.
So you're going to have a lot of cash.
Yeah, that's the reason for secure transport in the licensing is.
So when they pay the sales tax and the 10% tax, there's going to be a big truck delivering.
Actually, the Treasury has been staffing up so that they can collect tax payments in cash. They haven't had to do that in decades, and so it's pretty interesting. But yeah, the Treasury has staffed up big time to accept these payments.
There's also PIN-based debit now being more widely used at the retail stores, kind of similar to an ATM. So we're seeing that, and then there's about 450 banks and credit unions nationally that service the industry. Again, it's mainly in the States, and we're starting to get there, as Josh said, a couple of them coming around, but it's certainly a problem now. But if you look at, in Oregon, 99% of the tax are paid electronically. They got enough banks over there that are servicing the market that it's normalized. So it's, it'll normalize, but we got some work to do for sure.
I come from the alcohol industry. We were owners of a beer distributorship, so I'm glad to see the regulation, Michigan Beer and Wine, the association, and that. So I want to learn more about the micro growers license, as far as municipalities have to approve that type of license too, is like the other? Or?
Yeah, just like all 6 license types, similar to the medical, local municipalities have the right to regulate how and where they want these. In my opinion, it should be more of a planning and zoning play. Don't get too much in the police powers and all these applications because you gotta go through the state. But yes, just like a drive-through restaurant or outdoor patio or something, maybe special land use or different things locally to control.
Justin, did I hear you say that we don't have a license right now for the medical side? Do I have to have that to get a micro grow license, or can you just start from scratch for that?
Not that one, so that license does not require the medical license or the Class A is a prerequisite, or the secure transport, transport or the lab. Also, I don't think you have to have a previous one. I think the transport, yeah, you don't have to have a previous one. So on the adult use, if you want to get into the micro business, you want to get into the transport or the smallest Class A grow license, you wouldn't have to have that prerequisite, as I'll call it, of having a medical marijuana facilities licensing act license first to then parlay into the new one.
Okay, and it shouldn't be as rigorous as the other?
Based on the work groups, I'll give it over to Josh too. You can talk about some of the drafting, what they were thinking for the micro business. Based on the work groups, talking with department heads and so forth, they're still going to have to do all the seed to sale tracking and everything else, but I think there'll be some way they can be a little more lenient on it, but they still got to do the same rules and regs for sure.
Yeah, so Michigan is the only state in the country that has a microgrow license, and in drafting the law, actually the drafting was back in 2017, when that law was drafted, the intent was to make Michigan the most small business friendly state when it comes to cannabis. So allowing for these very small business type licenses was one of the ways to do that, and in some of the conversations with the state, Prop 1 requires the state to make an effort to grant business licenses to communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the prohibition of marijuana. What that means is African Americans in the state are almost 4 times more likely to be arrested on a marijuana charge. So are people in very low-income communities, no matter what color. So if you're poor or you're a minority, those are the people who most often get arrested. The idea is to offer this license as a low barrier to entry way to get into this industry and to own a business. The state, in the few conversations we've had so far, sees this as a great opportunity to achieve that goal. And because you don't have to have a medical marijuana license prior to getting this one, it ensures that there are more opportunities out there outside of just the businesses that were first in on the medical marijuana side. Oh, and one thing about zoning, I would say, I serve on the City of Lansing Planning Board, so zoning stuff is really fun for me. And this is a unique license type because it's not a manufacturing land use, it's not a purely retail land use. It's one of those land uses that kind of combines everything. So communities are kind of, they're not sure in their heads how they're going to deal with these microgrow licenses. My comment to them has been, if you would allow a microbrewery or a micro distillery in a certain land use, that's pretty much the same land use that you're talking about for a microgrow business. So it might not be ideal for your retail spot downtown, but just right outside there would probably be what you're looking at, is maybe not in your downtown district, but right on the edge of it, something like that is kind of what makes sense to me from a planning person standpoint.
It's like a distiller's license, pretty much, right?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, you do everything in that licensed location. You cannot distribute outside.
Yeah, and you dodge all the hard shit to do and just make all your money.
Maybe. I mean, it's also, I think, one of the hardest licenses because you have to have expertise in the marketing, the retail, the processing, the growing, all of it. So it's a very complex license in a lot of ways too.
It's been said that fees and taxation has driven the market into the black market in California. Here we can have a micro distributorship, but in order to be a commercial sized business, not one business can do everything. They cannot cultivate, they cannot retail, they can't, test, correct?
For the micro businesses, yes. The
micro business, but the other business, it's the product's changing hands between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different licenses?
That's correct.
And the fees are gonna go up.
So actually, the state is talking about lowering the fees for the applications and for the annual assessments.
And every time the product changes hands, there's not gonna be taxation?
No, there's not taxation in between, but, so one thing Michigan does have going for it is we are the lowest retail tax in the country. So we're not taxing the consumer to death on these products, which is a very positive thing. As the state staffs up and fine tunes its processes and businesses get licensed, I do think you're gonna see the cost for licenses start to go down. But it's not just the cost of the licenses, it is the amount of information required in the application process and the hoops that businesses have to jump to. And that's what you're seeing in California is, you know, they've been supplying most of the country on the black market for years. And if you want people to go legal, you have to understand that some people need to be able to access the licenses who maybe haven't always been doing things 100% legally. That's how you're going to get rid of the black market.
Was one of the biggest distributors in California, formerly someone that was doing underground?
I'm not an expert in the California market, but potentially, I don't know.
Okay, well, let me, real quick, can you again clearly explain the personal use? You said you can grow 10 plants?
12 plants
12 plants?
per household.
Per household,
Per
per
household.
adult?
No, per household.
Per household. I've never seen a marijuana plant, so is that like little plants, big plants, what?
It depends on the variety of plant, I guess, but it's 12 plants. I'm not gonna lie, that's quite a lot. But you can brew an unlimited amount of beer in your home. You could brew 100 kegs of beer if you have the room to store it. The minute you start selling it is when you get in trouble. And it's the same thing for marijuana, only we actually have a hard cap on the number of plants you're allowed. So, in a lot of ways, it's far more restrictive than alcohol. You can have as much tobacco in your home as you want, as much alcohol in your home as you want. We at least have that restriction on cannabis.
It seems to me that one of the biggest businesses that would come forward would be people teaching other people how to grow at home. Then you're bypassing all these taxes, all the...
Potentially, but not just like everyone. Not everyone wants to brew beer. Not everyone has the time and the energy and the expertise to grow marijuana. I love beer more than the average person probably. I don't want to brew it at home. It's a pain in the butt, and I can't do it very well. I've tried. It sucks. So you're going to see the same thing with people in marijuana in the long run. In the short term, maybe that will be a viable thing, but who has the time for all that? Unless you're really good at what you do and you're an expert green thumb, you're not going to take the time to do that.
Yes.
I have a question.
I'll bring it over there next, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean.
After going through a long court session in Oakland County and being aware that there's been a constant resistance of the political community to resist this, whether it was voted positively as it has been at a couple different levels, they really basically disregarded and quietly, maliciously prosecute. We've seen this constantly through Oakland County. So as the forfeiture now has been taken out of the picture to a certain extent, which was a motivator. The other motivator is, of course, federal funds going to the police groups that have net groups. And so every arrest that gets a stick of marijuana now is a drug charge, and they receive money for it. With the new governor and attorney general, do you see a more cooperative expectation? You have a more cooperative expectation about expungement and getting rid of these basic, what have turned out to be setups for a lot of people. They walked in many, many times, oh, this is wonderful, this is how we do business. 2 weeks later, Bill Schuette was there, or of course he didn't get elected, did he? Anyway, that's pretty much my answer, because you can't talk about it a little bit.
Sure. So in the campaign, we actually had a former state police officer who taught the department how to do civil asset forfeiture. he endorsed our campaign because he has seen that process be completely, for lack of a better word, bastardized and twisted into something it wasn't intended to be. So I do think you'll see law enforcement redirect their attention towards issues that are more important to the community, opiate epidemic, violent crime, things like that. There was a study issued last fall from Washington State University that showed police in Washington and Colorado are solving crimes faster after legalization compared to states that haven't legalized. And that study, while not saying 100% it has to be because of legalization, all things being equal, they couldn't point to any other reason for these law enforcement to be clearing their cases that much faster. So I think what you'll see is, people redirecting their resources and their energy towards the things that are truly impacting the quality of life in our communities. So I think that's going to be a good thing.
Back to the expungement, what is your?
Stand on the microphone, please.
So the question was on following up on the expungement. So right after the election, then Governor-elect Whitmer signaled her intention to support an expungement package. That there is a package in I believe in the House right now, and there was a package introduced last year as well. So I think expungement is going to happen. It's just a matter of what the form looks like and how fast we can get it moving.
Okay, we have time for really two quick ones here.
I don't have a question, but I'm Jerry Millen, and we have the first licensed facility here in Oakland County. It's called the Greenhouse of Walled Lake. And I would assume most of you probably have not been in a dispensary or provisionary center. Would that be correct? Yeah. I think it's very important education-wise to get people in, see what kind of customers we have, see what the facilities are like inside. So I'm more than welcome to, if your group would like to put a tour together, maybe for a Sunday morning, walk you through, meet some of our patients, meet some of our employees. Because I think that's what's important. You should meet the people that are coming to these facilities, because you'd be surprised, about 60 to 70% of my customer base is 50 or older. You would be so surprised. And I welcome you if you'd like to. You can talk to me after this, and we'll schedule a group tour so you can see the facility.
And we're going to charge you for that advertisement. Real quick.
My question's a little bit longer than we're waiting. I've been running a caregiver service to vets and people who are in cancer patients. We've lost a few. We've got people off of opiates. We include a satisfaction money-back guarantee. We go out of our way to be an American consumer company. Everything we move is tested. We offer concentrates and flowers and edibles when we can. But the biggest problem we've faced is with the rising costs in legalization. We're on the path to licensing right now with our city. And we can't compete with out-of-state bud. What's going to be done to stop the influx of interstate bud? Because right now it's very difficult for businesses meeting these costs and raising their prices when the black market is lowering their prices and have like twice in the past 6 months. Really made it difficult for us to compete.
Yeah, certainly we're seeing that. We're hearing from, we work with all size licensees, from the small to publicly traded and so forth, and we hear it from them, consistently with them that, the pressures of the black market could unravel everything that we're trying to transition into. And as Josh pointed out, I believe, if you have a green thumb and you want to grow it yourself, that's part of the proposal one and so forth. Wonderful, God bless you, and go do that. And if you want to commercialize and so forth, they've created a number of paths, and for my clients that were paying into the position and so forth, that was the thing. They wanted a small business approach to set the foundation, just like we try in the medical market, to allow whatever size, and relate to our auto industry, the tool and dies, the hundreds of auto manufacturers to begin with. So be it a micro business, a class A grow, you don't have to have the medical to first get in that. So as much as with control through the parameters we have, We set up some really good foundations for these. So now the devil's in the details on the rules and regulations, which is really going to, you know, which way the thing's going to be a big success and it really encouraged and made this small business market, or it splintered the market. A couple big guys become the Walmarts of it, and then the black market's really cutting into the rest. So.
My second question is about those micro business licenses. We're considering one now that they've come out, but we also heard that it has to happen in the facility. Our service is a delivery service because we're medical, and many of our patients, cancer patients, older folk, people who have pain, they can't get around. They can't get to the dispensaries in Oakland and other places, and we provide the kind of medical quality and customer service they need. Will delivery be allowed under the micro business? Because that's an important part for a lot of our medical community.
The state is, well, Lara has kind of signaled their interest in looking at that and willingness to discuss it. There's no clear answer for sure yet. Also, just to get to the black market thing again, I would just say the more we can make the Michigan market convenient and safe and easy for the customer, the less you're going to see people turning to black market products. And
you do it for the business too.
You do. You absolutely do. And so, I mean, it's a partnership. If our communities want to eliminate the black market, they need to allow businesses. If the state wants to eliminate the black market, they need to make it easier for businesses to comply. Those are the things that can be, everyone's got to work together. I mean, no one wants to see the black market flourish in this state. It doesn't benefit the state, it doesn't benefit the consumer, but we all have to make it easier for the market to succeed.
I've just been told that that was the last question, but I have one more. How is, in Amsterdam, they've been doing marijuana for decades. Have we looked at anything there and see what was positive and what was negative, and how will their experience mirror ours or be different from ours? And now I got to give the mic back to the boss here.
Okay, I'll be quick. Amsterdam is the worst of all worlds, actually. I mean, they've decriminalized products, but it's still technically illegal for businesses to sell it. Law enforcement turns a blind eye, and they kind of look the other way, and it's a wink and a nod. And but the state's not, or the country is not collecting taxes. The businesses aren't licensed. The products aren't tested. And there were some people in Michigan that were like, well, let's not legalize, let's decriminalize. That gets you nowhere. It's either legal or it's not. It's either licensed and tested and safe or it's not. To go with an Amsterdam model would, it's a halfway approach that gets you into a whole lot of mess. And yes, they're not arresting people because it's decriminalized, but they're not getting any of the benefits for the country either, in terms of taxation and business licensing and all that.
Hey, thank you guys very much. Let's have a big hand for Josh Hovey and Justin Vanessa. Thank you, and I know that Josh drove from Lansing today. We appreciate you coming that far.
I'll come this way anyway.
Anyway, last call for the raffle. Also, I'd like to make sure everybody is signed in. If you want to be on our mailing list, sign in over here and clearly write your email address so I can, it's hard to read it sometimes when you're typing those things in. So if you'd like to be on our mailing list and be up to date on what events like this we're putting on. This is actually going to be our last business type meeting like this until fall. We're going into more of a festive type mode because we've learned that people don't want to come when the sun is shining, it's warm out, and they're out boating and stuff like that. So our next event for Memorial Day is going to be the Waterford Memorial Day Parade, which is a lot of fun. They get thousands of people lining this thing. If you come and march with us, watch our Facebook group page and our website. We'll give you the information on how to join us. March with us. It's a lot of fun. We're building a new float this year, and we throw candy to the kids. It's just like after that, we're gonna later on we'll, in the summer, we'll have a picnic, and then we're planning a party later on in the summer, and then in the fall, we're gonna get back to doing these kinds of meetings with, in fact, I'll tell you the topic we're working on this fall for the first meeting will be, we're doing a study on the Oakland County schools and what's going on with the money that's being collected on that. And so we're going to be like 60 minutes, we're going to study that thing. And right, Senator Kowal? I'd like to say we've also been joined by Senator Jim Runstad, who's joined us here. He's also on our board. All right, when I get going with the, first let me ask, is there anybody here from a group that wants to promote their,
Oh, yes.
oh, no, no, you don't, oh, God, can you keep it short, please?
Yeah, I can keep it short. Since Jose left, I'm the assistant membership director, and since you did not mention membership, if you're not a member, please consider joining. We really appreciate it. And second, on September, we're looking for a Septemberfest. That's like an Oktoberfest, only earlier and more fun. So we'll let you know how that's going. It's going to be at a dance hall. So
you can do the raffle.
I can do the raffle?
Yeah.
You're going to let me do the raffle?
We're going to, anybody else want a quick raffle ticket before? Hey, I would like to say, we got, in light of our topic today, we have brownies in the back of the room. So anybody wants a brownie, we got some really nice ones.
All right. First number. No. 000. Last three.
Are you kidding me?
No. You got it?
Over there.
Who's got it? Yay! You get to go over there and choose.
You get the first choice.
You get the first choice.
How many have we got back there, Steve? How many?
That's the first time ever 0.
4 items, and we'll probably do a hat, too.
4 items and a hat.
Keep America great.
All right. I didn't wear my glasses. 013. 013. Last three numbers. 013.
That was the extra tickets.
No, somebody. Wait a minute. Did I get that?
You have it there?
Oh, I got it here.
You got it?
I got it.
All right. Hold on.
I don't want anything.
You don't want anything. All right.
This, what happened was he tore the tickets off, and he couldn't remember, he couldn't find them in the bucket, so he wasn't sure what they went to.
984.
There you go.
Yay! All right.
Your choice. Your choice.
Well, I don't think he needs a hand, unless he does want one. Actually, I do.
Yeah.
Wants the new
All right.
one. Oh, I give him.
He's got friends.
What do we got? One more?
Oh, we got more than that.
Keep going.
019. 019.
All right, Laura.
There we go.
Yay.
Just pick whatever, what's left there on the
Book,
table.
wine, or a table? Hat.
979. 979.
That's right here.
All right.
Hey.
Yeah, you can have it.
Keep going.
986. 986. I think that was mine.
No, it's mine, but it's fine.
You don't get to.
You want to? That's pretty good.
No, you don't get to. You get one. Too many prizes. 005. You got a lot of zeros.
005.
There you go.
005. All right. For winning a prize, I think you have to give us free samples. I'm sure that's the way it works. Justin said
No free product, but a penny. You can sell for a penny.
you can sell it for a penny. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Jerry.
017. What a gentleman. Thank you for that.
Yes, I thank you.
017. All right,
What do we have left, one?
we got one book left.
Is that it? The book is left?
All right,
The old book.
976.
All right.
Hey.
Lady in the back, very good.
Hey, Fran.
Good job. All right, Sean Steele is here from the Young Republicans, which we all qualify for, of course. You have an event you'd like to talk about?
We don't have a speaker yet for our May meeting. It's always off May 20th, but we meet third Monday of every month at Bailey's in Troy, 6:30. You're all welcome to join us. We try to get topics that interest people, candidates sometimes, speakers, legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government, and we welcome all ages, all people. If you're interested in our speakers, just check us out on Facebook, or you can give me an email address. I can add you to our email list as well. May 20th.
Good job. He's the previous president of the Young Republicans. What, you get too old to continue as president?
I did it all.
Hey, remind me, Sean, we're starting a linked calendar for all the Republican clubs in the area. We'll talk about it. We'll give you a special password for that, and then we're going to start. So we'll be able to coordinate everything. And I'd like to thank Terry Whitney, our communications director, for setting that up. So very good. Well, thank you everybody for coming. And as I said, this has been on Facebook Live. You can go on find our Facebook group site, and you'll be able to see this whole event again. And also, we're going to put these PowerPoints up on our website. So anyway, thank you for coming, and we'll see you at the Memorial Day Parade next month. And we're going to Heroes afterwards too. If you guys want to grab a bite and rehydrate with us. Heroes, which is on M59 near Telegraph.